Welcome to The Smart Divorce on Divorce Source Radio, helping you move forward with focus, hope, and confidence, saving you time, money, and your sanity as you build a better life post-divorce. I'm Steve Peck. Deborah Moskovich, divorce consultant, educator, and author of The Smart Divorce, brings you the leading experts and researchers in the divorce arena. We'll also speak with those in the trenches, people who've learned from their divorce and how their experience has changed their lives. And they would tell you for the better. Divorce can be a beginning, even if it looks like an end, and rich in opportunity to learn and grow from. And on the Smart Divorce Radio Show, we'll explore how to create a positive outlook post-divorce life. And now, here's Deborah.
Hello, hello. How are you, Steve?
I'm great. How are you, Debbie?
I am just fabulous. Work is great. I've got lots happening with the Smart Divorce Toolkit, lots of sales, really guiding people towards positive futures, happier and healthier, and it feels wonderful.
Awesome. And we've got a great guest today.
Not only do we have a great guest, but it's another thought-provoking show. You know, grieving divorce for many doesn't have the closure that grief has when you mourn the death of a loved one. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, when you think about rituals, holidays, and traditions, and you're going to be celebrating them or potentially celebrating them differently than when you were married, you know, what about all those new traditions that you might want to consider? So we've got a fabulous guest today, Rabbi Ann Brenner, who's going to help us understand that and give us ideas for restructuring our thought process.
Awesome.
Rabbi Brenner is the Director of Spiritual Development at the Academy for Jewish Religion in California. She serves as the rabbi for the congregation Makom or Shalom, and is a bereavement chaplain at Skirball Hospice. But she's fabulous for our show today because she wrote a book called Mourning Mitzvah, Walking the Mourner's Path. But, you know, what I like when I spoke to Rabbi Brenner previous to the show is how we can take those lessons and learn how to mourn or you know, the loss of our marriage, new rituals, new traditions, and, you know, think about things in a very different way. You know, we really need to reframe our thinking.
And Deb, for some of our listeners, explain mitzvah.
Oh, let's bring on Rabbi Brenner and ask her.
Hey, Rabbi, welcome to the Smart Divorce on Divorce Source Radio.
Thank you. Thank you. You're doing good work. It's nice to be able to be part of it.
Thanks. So, yeah, mitzvah, for our other listeners that don't know what that means, maybe you can explain.
Well, in the title of the book, I kind of played with the word mitzvah because technically a mitzvah is an obligation that a Jew is supposed to practice based on things that are told in the 5 books of Moses. However, colloquially, it means it's a good deed. It's something that if you do it, you're going to feel good. You'll feel better if you do it. Like go visit that your Uncle Joe who's in the hospital. It's a good deed, and when you do it, you'll feel better. It's a mitzvah. So that's what the word mitzvah means. But technically, it is a commandment, but it also has a connection to an Aramaic word that means connection. So when you do a mitzvah, when you perform a mitzvah, it's a way of connecting with holiness and reminding yourself that holiness is in the world.
So a bar mitzvah.
A bar mitzvah, what that literally means is a son of the obligations. It means that one reaches the age where one is responsible for one's behavior. And when you're responsible for your behavior, then you live a life of performing appropriately and doing mitzvot, which is the plural of mitzvah.
You know, it's interesting because I will use the word mitzvah when someone does something positive for someone else, but I don't even think about the meaning of it in terms of how do I translate it. So I'm glad that you could explain that far better than I ever could. Thank you.
When we titled the book, I think we were really thinking of people like you. And what I did in the book is walk people through the Jewish rituals for grieving, which are absolutely brilliant in terms of today's understanding of the psychological needs of people who are going through major transitions in their life. And so I walked people through those practices, but I tried to penetrate them for the psychological healing wisdom that is contained in all of the different rituals that we perform.
I'm sorry, I just want to say, just before we go on, for our listeners, you don't have to be Jewish to appreciate Rabbi Brenner's advice. Her book's been translated into Spanish, Portuguese, and several African dialects. So, if you're not Jewish and you're downloaded this podcast and you're thinking, well, how does this apply to me? Rabbi Brenner's got some great advice, no matter what your belief system is.
Well, I happen to speak Jewish, but the things that I'm saying are universal, and so this is the language that I use, but it translates very freely. The book has only been translated into Spanish, but aspects of my work have been translated into those other languages. I don't want to take credit for more than I deserve here.
Very humble. So tell us something, Rabbi Brenner. When you are grieving the end of your marriage, it's really hard to find that closure because there aren't the rituals involved that there are in grieving the death of a loved one. Like in marriage, when you have that loss, there are a lot of ups and downs. Your partner is suddenly gone. But if you've got kids, there's that constant reminder. Because they're always in your life. So how do you help someone find that closure?
Well, what you're talking about falls in the category that is often called ambiguous losses, because while it's a major transformation of your life and a major transition, you don't get to bury them the way you would with someone who dies. So it makes it in many ways a lot more complicated, although everything is their own universe of difficulty. The thing is, and I'll go back to the book actually, because it says walking the mourner's path, and what that speaks of is a path that existed in the time of the temple in Jerusalem. This is the temple where Jesus went and where Muhammad was, as well as the Jewish temple. So all of Western religion really has their roots in that building. And there was a special path that was called the mourner's path. But guess what? It wasn't just people who we think of as mourners who walked it. It was really anybody who was in the midst of some sort of profound transition in their life. To put in today's terms the categories of people who would walk the path, it would be, of course, mourners, people that we think of as mourners today, but people whose status in the community had changed, people whose financial status had changed, as well as people who were dealing with illness. So all of those people were seen in that time as mourners and were all blessed in the same way and went through a similar ritual. So being able to honor the fact that this is indeed a death and needs to be acknowledged as a kind of death with ritual is an understanding that goes back to that time, to ancient times, and so mourners, people who are divorced need to give themselves the opportunity to make their loss visible the way it was visible when people walk that path, so that people can give them the support they need, and so that they can create rituals that will help them make a transition. Ritual makes tangible these sort of ineffable, intangible experiences that we have. And if we don't make them tangible, it becomes much harder to deal with them. Ritual kind of gives you something to sort of play on an old expression we used to use, it's something you can dance with. When the temple was actually envisioned, according to the Bible, by King David, he talked about it being a place where mourning would turn into dancing. And in the Bible, the word that is translated as dance in English has maybe 8 different forms. And there's all kinds of dances. And what we need sometimes is a dance that's not a celebratory dance, but kind of a ritual dirge dance, a dance that helps you lament and express your feelings, your deep and often dark feelings, so that there's a place where it can be enacted, because the only feelings that don't change are the feelings that we don't give voice to. So we need opportunities to give voice to things in the way that ritual provides those opportunities.
So can you give our listeners some ideas in terms of some of those dances and rituals that they might embrace?
Well, I'll go back to the Jewish ritual for divorce, which is very visceral, and in the most observant communities, they actually take the marriage contract that was written and was exchanged in the engagement ceremony, and they cut it. They cut it and they slice it up and they tear it up, and it's gone. And so that's something that people could think about. I mean, it's very painful to do it, but it certainly acknowledges that this is painful, and this is real. And once it is sliced up, we're not able to put it back together again. When you want to create a ritual, you can look at the various the earth, wind, fire, water, all of those different things can be used in creating rituals. So you may have something that was integral to the marriage, and you might want to bury it. You might want to go through your house with sage, or with some sort of an herb that represents change and cleansing, and go around the house using wind and fire at the same time to kind of to sort of smoke it out of the crevices and change the house into a new environment. There is a ritual in Judaism called going to the mikveh, which is actually the source of the rituals of baptism. A person after their divorce may want to go into a body of water and have a sense that they are coming out reborn with a new status. Let's see, that's fire, water, which I think I've covered all of those different aspects.
Well, it's interesting what you said about the Jewish divorce. I've got my get, and I've talked about it in other shows too, how I went to the Beit Din. And so the Beit Din is a Jewish court. I went to the Orthodox Beit Din. Mm-hmm. And so what they did for me, or they do for anyone that goes for their Jewish get, which is a Jewish divorce, is they write out the divorce. They physically write it out. It's not like a printed document. Mm-hmm. And then there's like that ritual, or there's like a ceremony where my ex-husband now gives it to me, and I give it back to him, and he drops it in my hand. And that did give me the closure. Mm-hmm. How can you help people who, don't get a get, but think about that in terms of in terms of their belief system, and what just some ideas what they might do?
Well, I think I suggested a number of different things. I mean, I think that one of the things that's so important in a divorce is finding your voice. Ideally, people are dissolving a relationship where people can speak honestly to each other and say, this is why this doesn't work. Unfortunately, that's not always the case. Mm-hmm. People. One of the reasons people get divorces is because people don't hear each other, and so it's not always possible to have that kind of clean discussion. But you talked about a court, the divorce court, the Orthodox divorce court. Well, it would be possible to constitute a court of your own, witnesses, friends who understand you and really can hear you, and to create a time where you get together and you speak, where the person who's getting the divorce speaks about what the relationship was, what the hopes were, and what the reality was, what the difficulty is in letting it go, and then use some of these things that I spoke about earlier: earth, water, fire, wind, in some way to ritually say, okay, the marriage is dissolved.
Yeah, and you also said, which I thought was really good. Now that I'm thinking back, and I apologize for that, but cutting up your marriage certificate, it would be like the same thing.
Yeah,
there's that closure.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a guest.
Or you could take a picture from the wedding, or you could take, it would be any object that would be that would really represent the marriage, and then carve it up, or bury it, or burn it, or throw it to the winds. Whatever is the appropriate thing to do, with witnesses, always with witnesses. In Judaism, the most important role that we play for other people is to be their witness, and the word for witness is actually the root of the word for community. And that's what a community is supposed to be: people who can witness you and not necessarily intrude upon you or tell you what to do, but basically be your witness. So you need to constitute that court of witnesses to be there to support you and hopefully to feed you after.
Yeah, but isn't that something? That's just something that's evolved with all Jewish customs, rituals, and holidays, is food.
Right. And particularly, but it's very interesting the way in which food is used in mourning, because it is a counter to Jewish law and practice for the mourner to come home from a funeral and eat food that he or she has prepared themselves. The community is obligated to feed the mourner, and I think we should extend that. The community is obligated to create a meal of consolation. That's what it's called, for people who are coming for, who are going through the divorce, a ceremony that represents divorce.
Or just to bring over a tub of, Chunky Monkey or something. Right.
It could be as easy as that. Yeah.
Ice cream, your favorite chocolate chip cookies or whatever.
Yeah.
There it is, So you can commiserate, as opposed to, I guess, a divorce party, to make a mockery of your marriage.
Well, a divorce party, a lot of these things are sort of, I don't want to say perversions of, I would say subversions of very important ritual needs that people have, but we don't often bring the gravitas that is essential to these kinds of things. Look, it happens in the Jewish community very often. When people go to the house of mourning, it turns into more of a party because people are so uncomfortable with the reality of death. But in fact, we're supposed to bring food to people who are mourning, and to sit there quietly with great respect and gravitas, and wait for them to speak. And that kind of a ritual could be extended to just about anyone.
Yeah.
To turn it, it can turn into a party, but let's begin by acknowledging the reality of why we're here, and then this wasn't an easy place to get to, and so let's take it seriously, and then we can turn mourning into some sort of dancing. And as I remind you, dancing not necessarily just celebratory, but dancing as a serious choreography that gives vent to all kinds of emotions.
Yeah. That's a really great way of looking at it. How do you help our listeners Like society looks at a loss for someone who's widowed very differently than the loss of someone that's lost their partner through marriage, through divorce. So for instance, and I've seen this because I've got a couple of very close friends who are widowed. When they lost their partners, it was sad for everyone around them, and they embraced them into their lives. They made sure they brought them over for dinner, and they went out with them, and that they were happy. But yet when someone is divorced, it's almost like, people around them say, you brought it on yourself. So the sympathy isn't the same. It's not like everyone's looking to take you out for dinner, invite you over for dinner. You're sort of left on your own. How would you help people, I guess, manage those differences?
Well, before we try to manage them, let's look at what they represent. When someone dies, it's not just the widow who is bereft. The whole community is bereft. And so it's in sharing that sense of bereavement, it is perhaps easier to open your heart, because when there's a divorce, there are two people. And it may be that when we talk about ambiguous losses, this is a good example of what that means. Because I can remember a number of divorces in my community where people felt they had to take sides, or people felt maybe that they didn't have to take sides, but they were confused about how do you integrate these people that used to be a couple into your lives in a different way. Right. So I think we're talking about the discomfort that people often feel with a divorce, and knowing what their role needs to be. So if we're honest about that, we need to really look at ourselves and see how we're going to support these people. So there's that. I think what was your original question? Is how to change that difference?
Yeah, society really does treat divorcees very different than widows. Mm-hmm. Do you think so, Steve? Have you seen that?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and for some it's difficult. They feel very alone.
Well, it also, I think for both death and divorce, people are a little uncomfortable about the contagion factor.
Yeah.
And so that needs to be acknowledged. Just because I got a divorce doesn't mean that my friends are going to get a divorce. In fact, I did get a divorce, and most of my friends continue to have really, I think, healthy marriages. And so it's been an interesting process of being the single person at the dinner table at my friends' houses.
Yeah.
I think that acknowledging that divorce is not always a choice for people.
Exactly. Yeah.
So acknowledging what your needs are, and then finding the community. It may be very often, and this is true for widows as well, that you need to find that part of the transition is to create the kind of community that truly can support you, that isn't threatened by your loss, whether it's through death or through divorce.
Right.
Through divorce, yeah.
Now, what about new rituals around holidays and other special times? What are some suggestions that you have there?
Well, one is, there's always a thing, whose house am I going to go to?
Yeah.
But so maybe you need to be a little bit more flexible with your calendar. Okay, so this Thanksgiving may be on a Thursday with your father, but it's on a Saturday over here. That's one way of looking at it. Ideally, and fortunately, in my divorce, we were able to do this. We were able to celebrate holidays together when we're all in the same town, because a family is a family, and you can remain connected on these things if they're children. It's important to try to make that, but that's not always possible. It's
No.
not always possible. So finding a way of being flexible with your calendar, making peace with the fact that maybe this year they're going to be your kids are going to be elsewhere. So I'm not going to really celebrate it the way I usually do, but I'm going to go on a trip, or I'm going to have some special day that I create for myself, so that the pain of not having the kids there won't be so great.
Yeah, you know what? I agree with you. I remember my first, few holidays alone. The first Rosh Hashanah that I had, the first Jewish New Year, which is 2 days. My kids weren't with me one of those days, so I choose not to go to synagogue. You know what? I stayed home and I read the paper and I did all sorts of things that I don't normally have the time to do, and it was different. But, definitely didn't feel comfortable going to synagogue by myself without having my kids with me. And you know what? It was fine. And then I got used to it. And now, I celebrate the holidays differently. And then I look at birthdays, my kids and I now, we have Dairy Queen ice cream cake, for each of our first celebrations. It was something I didn't do when we were married, but probably because my kids were so little at the time that I wasn't letting them have ice cream cake. But, there were, so I guess, you've got to find those different traditions that you want to bring in.
and then you can explore the holidays in ways that are different for yourself. I mean, my daughter is now living in another city, and so she's not going to be with me this year for Passover just because of her work schedule. So I am finding ways to make Passover that speaks to other parts of myself and it's not about family as much as it used to be.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's just the way it is as I grow and change. I have to find finding a new relationship to Rosh Hashanah that's not about family, but is about some of the more more actually central roles of what the day is supposed to mean, may be something that can spur your own growth in terms of your spiritual life.
Right.
So I think there's a lot of different options.
Yeah, and it doesn't even have to be significant holidays. It could be we've got in Ontario Family Day, or it could be Easter, I know, which is really important. But what if your kids are all away at university?
Yeah,
and
graduations.
Graduations,
like
yeah. I guess you do have to find ways to look at monumental, special moments differently.
Also, with kids today, at least with my daughter and her friends, their birthdays seem to be not just focused on a single day, but they extend for at least a week. So there's all kinds of days to celebrate in different ways, and she celebrates with her friends differently than she does with me. So she can celebrate with her father differently than she would with me as well.
Yeah. That's a great way that I just never really thought about, is celebrating, with one parent, one way than the other parent. It doesn't have to be the same.
Right, and I think one of the most important growth opportunities that exists within a divorce is to redefine yourself and see who I am that's unique to me. There's a wonderful quote from Albert Camus that says, no matter how good the relationship is, it obscured a part of the sky. And when the relationship is gone, you get that piece of the sky. So finding your own piece of the sky and then being able to grow it and develop it will allow you to look at each holiday in a way that's different than the way that you looked at it before, or each significant moment in a way that's different than you did before. And so being able to grow into that person that you couldn't grow into when you were married to someone else is the real opportunity that divorce presents for us.
I love that.
As any loss presents for us,
yeah.
Although with divorce there's other challenges, I think.
I love that. That's really special. That's a great takeaway. Is there anything else? Like I know in your book you've got 60 journaling exercises. Are there any else that you think that what you've got in your book would relate to divorce?
Oh, well, there's one in particular that I think of that is it's essentially a guided letter that I encourage people to write to people that they remember. And something important about my book that is really relevant here is that when I wrote the book, I wanted it to work for people no matter what kind of relationship they had with the person who died. So I never ever used the word dear one, because I assume that relationships are complicated, and the people who need to do the grief work the most are often the people who had the most complicated and often difficult relationships. So within the book, there's never an assumption that you're mourning someone who was an angel to you. So one of the exercises that I have in the book is this guided letter, which talks about if you could have known this about me, if you could have felt this about me, if you know who I am that you were unable to see, what you didn't know about me, all of these different things that are so relevant in a divorce because of the inability very often of the partners to have seen each other clearly in the marriage, creating the need for the marriage to dissolve. So that's one of the exercises, but really, I think many of the exercises relate to the unfinished business that exists in relationships, and the need and the need to work it through, even if the person is not able or available to work it through with. The need for, as I said, people have to find their voice.
Right.
And the book is dedicated to helping people find their voice. And I think particularly in a marriage that has been a difficult marriage, it's almost been impossible to really find your true voice. So the book really does work to help people find that voice. And
how would people find your book?
Oh boy, they can find it pretty easily. It's if they remember that my name is spelled with one N, that Ann has an E and Brenner has one N. It's available on Amazon. It can certainly be found at Barnes and Noble, and then through the publisher, which is Jewish Lights Publishing. But it's easy to find. It's in a lot of bookstores as well. It's been out for 20 years and still seems to be helping people.
That's just phenomenal. So obviously it is, because to be on the bookshelves after 20 years, it's making a difference.
Well, I mean, the thing about it is that when I wrote it, I really wrote it out of my own need to take care of myself. And so that it has turned into something that's really had meaning for so many other people is kind of a stunner for me. But I mean, I think it really speaks to the fact that all of us, when we're facing these challenges in our lives, need to attend to our challenges.
Right.
And what comes out of it may be something you never could have imagined. I never could have imagined that I would have created something like this. I was just licking my wounds in the way that I knew how, which was to write, and then this came. And
well, you're certainly helping a lot of people, and you're helping a lot of people in other ways too. I know that you are you specialize in grief and healing counseling. So if someone needs to get in touch with you, how would they do that?
Oh, they could just email me. My email address is mekamot, mekamot, at AOL.com.
Fabulous.
Yeah. And mekamot is a play on a word that was used in blessing the people who walked the path the mourner's path, which, as I said, was walked by people whose status had changed in the society. And Makom is the name of God that was used in their blessing. And in Judaism, we have so many names for God, and they all, or most of them, carry epithets that describe different attributes of God. But Makom only means the place. And I think it really speaks to the need to create a place, and a ritual is a place. A ritual is a tangible place in which transformation can happen. And so the fact that we use this word for God to bless people in the midst of profound transformations in their lives, I think is just brilliant, because it doesn't tell them who they need to be or what they need to do or what they need to believe in. It just says you have to find the space of comfort, and that may look differently for one person and or another. And finding Hamakom, the place, is the work that we do, and that's where the comfort comes.
Yeah, and that's special. You've also given me a lot of great ideas to help my coaching clients in terms of reframing, looking at things, trying to have looking for a positive future, and looking for that blue.
Look at this. I've got two powerful women on the radio. Unbelievable. Lucky me, lucky our listeners.
Lucky to everyone.
Deborah, how do our listeners get a hold of you and what you're doing?
Info at The Smart Divorce. That's INFO at The Smart Divorce. And of course, please visit my website at www.thesmartdivorce.com, or feel free to call at 905-695-0270.
All right, awesome. Great show, Debbie. Thank you, Rabbi Ann. It's been a pleasure having you on The Smart Divorce on Divorce Source Radio.
Thank you. It was an honor to talk to both of you.
If you'd like to write a question, you can write to divorcesourceradio@gmail.com. If you want to write Deb direct, it's info@The Smart Divorce.
And for listeners, if you've got some shows that you would love, just topics that you'd love for us to explore, just let us know, and we'd be happy to bring on the right guests.
Very cool. All right, Deborah, always a pleasure. I look forward to talking to you next time.
Me too.
As always, I hope the program helped you. If you have a comment or question you'd like to ask us, we'd love to hear from you. You can leave us a voicemail on our listener line at area code 248-686-2256. Or drop us an email with your question or comment to divorcesourceradio@gmail.com. New programs are available every week on divorcesourceradio.com, as well as iTunes, BlackBerry, Stitcher, and all over the web. If you'd like to be notified when new programs are available, you can follow us on Twitter. Our follow word is Divorce Source. Also, if you're not listening from our website, I invite you to stop by divorcesourceradio.com, where you'll find a complete program archive. If you're looking for a specific subject, simply type it into our search engine, and chances are you'll find what you're looking for. We also have other resources available at our website as well. And while you're on our website, click on the Facebook icon and join the growing Divorce Source Radio Facebook community. Thanks for listening. Until next time, make it a great week and stay healthy. I'm Steve Peck.